Namaskar and welcome to our special program, PM Modi in Namibia, India's expanding African outreach. Now, India has long-standing historical ties with Namibia, being one of the first countries to back Namibia's independence in 1946, even before India's own independence, and support its SWAPO liberation movement against apartheid. I'm Mark Lynn, and with me is Amritpal Singh.
Thank you, Mark. Namibia is the world's third largest uranium producer and has significant reserves of lithium, zinc and rare earth metals, important for India's clean energy and tech ambitions. Namibia was the source of cheetahs reintroduced into India's Kuno National Park, the first intercontinental relocation of a major carnivore.
Indeed, and bilateral trade reached around $600 million in 2023-24, with India exporting pharmaceuticals, machinery and cereals, and importing minerals and oil. India's investments too in mining, infrastructure and services sector total around $800 million. So there's booming areas of cooperation.
That's right. And in a short while from now, we learn that Prime Minister Modi will be holding delegation-level talks with the Namibian President Netembo Nandi Ndaitwah, and later he'll address the Namibian Parliament as well. We'll get you those updates.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting Namibia after concluding his two-day visit to Brazil. In the first leg of his five-nation visit, Prime Minister Modi was this is the last leg of his visit. In fact, the Prime Minister was in the capital, Windhoek, where he was received by Selma Asiphala Musevye, who is the President of International Relations and Trade at the airport. The Prime Minister will hold bilateral talks with President Nandi Ndaitwah and also deliver an address to the Parliament of the country.
He will also pay homage to the founding father and the first president of Namibia, late Dr. Sam Nujoma. This is the first visit of Prime Minister to Namibia and the third ever prime ministerial visit from India to Namibia. Namibia is a valued and trusted African partner with whom India seeks to boost bilateral cooperation. So it was received by the foreign minister effectively at the airport when the Prime Minister arrived early this morning. Also, the Prime Minister received a grand welcome by the Indian Diaspora as he arrived at the State Guest House in Windhoek. The special welcome by the Indian community in Namibia reflected extreme optimism about closer India-Namibia friendship. They have retained a connect with their culture and traditions.
Well, the Indian diaspora was filled with enthusiasm as they met the Prime Minister, and some shared their experiences as well of meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Let's listen to what they've said.
The experience was excellent. We were just here meeting his parents, and now we have met the great Prime Minister of India. So we had a really great experience, and Jai Hind.
It was really a very surreal experience. He took my poster and he really focused on the poem. I really liked that about him, and it was like a very dream come true moment for me.
It was a lovely feeling after meeting Modi ji. I never had imagined कि किसी Prime Minister से मिलके इतना ज़्यादा अच्छा लगेगा, because it is a whole different energy, and the charisma that he carries, it's absolutely fantastic.
I liked it very much, and we are really fortunate to meet him here, and हमें काफी अच्छा लगा.
And India's development partnership with Namibia is not just about trade and diplomacy. It's about sharing skills and knowledge. At the University of Namibia in Windhoek, a center of excellence in IT set up with Indian support is equipping young Namibians with tools of digital age. Take a look at this report.
Capacity building play a crucial role when it comes to ties between two countries. I'm here in Namibia, in front of India-Namibia Center for Excellence in the field of information and technology. This center is established with the assistance by the Government of India, where hundreds of students have already been trained in the field of IT, and many of them are already enrolled to learn new skills, to burnish their skills, and to fulfill the vision of Namibian government of e-governance and digital empowerment.
This center offers training in areas like software development, cybersecurity, and web design, all aimed at giving Namibian youth a competitive edge in the technology-driven world.
All these programs were set up with the assistance of the Indian government through SIDEC, because we basically implemented our programs in collaboration with SIDEC in Pune.
This is a very good collaboration with the Indian government to assist the Namibian government with ICT education.
The center is not just about building skills, it also creates opportunities for students from all walks of life to access quality IT training. It's part of India's focus on development that indirectly benefits people on the ground.
This center, we call it as India-Namibia Center of Excellence in Information Technology, which is established at Namibia University of Science and Technology under the bilateral agreement between Government of India and Government of Namibia. The main aim of this center is capacity building in Namibia, and also to boost the research capacity in Namibia. So using these capacity sector, we offer a few programs here. Many of the students, like I would say 500 plus students have been trained, and those are basically working professionals. We are assisting ministries and the government offices. They used to come here and upskill their knowledge.
How do you see the future of the center as more and more students they enroll in the center to learn in the field of IT?
I would say very, very important contribution from Government of India, as well as, in assisting the Government of Namibia to build the capacity in Namibia. So definitely center will fly, and we will work and assist as much as possible.
So we got to know that the India-Namibia Center of Excellence in Information Technology is not just a center. It's a vision where Namibians, youths and working professionals are being trained to work in the field of IT and also to burnish their skills, and which exactly is the demand of the future. With camera person Alok, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for TD India in Namibia.
And joining us now to expand our understanding of India-Namibia ties, we have with us Sushil Kumar Singhal, who's a former senior diplomat. Thank you very much, Ambassador Singhal, for being with us. How do India-Namibia ties actually fit into the greater African, the India-Africa engagement in a sense?
Well, it's a very interesting question which you raised. But let me just, you of course mentioned about how the ties between India and Africa have evolved, Namibia have evolved. 1946 years mentioned that, India was even pre-independence, we raised the in UN General Assembly issue of Namibia's independence. And SWAPO have opened the first embassy in India in 1986, which was later on in 1990 when they became independent. It was upgraded to in 1994. Actually, they opened the mission in India. We upgraded our mission in Namibia in 1990, immediately after the independence. India and Namibia's relations, have since then grown by leaps and bounds. There are leaders. He visited India, and this is third year visit. This is Prime Minister Modi's visit, which is taking place since after '98. Last was Prime Minister. There was, it was in immediately aftermath of the India's declaration of this nuclear status, and there was some talk about, issuing a declaration about anti-India. But after the visit, then it was the Durban Declaration which was issued. It called for the international nuclear disarmament, which is the demand for India. So this is the one, the political side. Their relationship has been very understanding. Secondly, this trade side, India's, we are about $800 million bilateral trade. We export about 400 million odd, and imports about 235 million. Apart from that, the development assistance which we talked about, India is a very important partner, and this is one of the African country where India is under ITAC program. India is giving training to the armed personnel. We have, Indian Air Force officials who are training the helicopter pilot. We have gifted them few helicopters also, and under ITAC we help them, in the capacity building for, even the medicine or even employment generations. And we have very interesting program. This is the first ever program in the world where the cheetahs was translocated from Namibia to India in 2022, and this project is doing very well, I must say. And then this time, the Prime Minister, when he's visiting, he is going to address the Parliament, of course, and the very important agreement on the digital. We have this, our sorry, the digital program which we have, for the transfer, which we, is going to be, I think, the 9th country where this facility would be created with the Indian help. And, in Namibia, as you said, the third largest producer of uranium and rare earth, which include lithium and other rare earth. So it's very important partner for us in the field of clean energy. In my view, Namibia is going to play a very important role for us. And when it comes to, African strategy, India is, has always been the votary of the global South, particularly of Africa. As we know, during G20, last G20, which was held in India, India advocated and ensured the entry of African Union as a permanent member of G20, which has been very widely appreciated. And India's investments, actually, now it has gone, in Namibia, we have about $800 million investments, FDI, and this is a plan to increase much more. I think the Prime Minister's visit will give it a further boost to it. And India is the 4th largest trading partner of Africa. We have about $100 billion plus bilateral trade. And our investment in Africa is in the range of about $76 billion. And we expect that by 2030, this is going to be reach about $150 billion in Africa. So India's partnership with Africa is increasing by leaps and bounds. And I think this visit of the Honorable Prime Minister is going to give further boost to it, boost to this relationship with Africa and with Namibia in particular.
Okay. So you're saying it's a part of the Africa outreach. We are joined on the show by Dr. Swasti Rao. She is the Associate Fellow at MPID-SA. Dr. Rao, are you with us? All right, I can see.
Yes,
Dr.
I'm very much with you.
Yes. I can see you on the screen now. Dr. Rao, Ambassador Singhal argues that this is, this visit to Namibia is part of the larger Africa outreach. But Namibia is a very small, we hardly have any diaspora. I think 450 people there. 800 million is what your investment is. Trade is just about, 600 million. Why did the Prime Minister choose Namibia to go in the whole African continent? He began with Ghana. Why is he ending with Namibia? What is the significance of that country?
No, thank you for that question. And I think a primer has already been given by our ambassador. So we definitely know what the NEA sort of image of how India views Namibia looks like. And you did mention some very pertinent issues as to why did the Prime Minister choose Namibia. Now, quickly, when Prime Minister is traveling afar, remember last time when he went to Canada, he also made a stopover at Cyprus and Croatia. Similarly, like this time, he was going to attend the BRICS summit in Brazil. And on his way, he chose certain Latin American countries and, Argentina, apart from Brazil, as well as Trinidad, Tobago, Ghana, etc. in Africa. And now he's coming back and he's stopping over in Namibia. Now, very quickly, you mentioned that there are very few diaspora. We hardly have any trade. The total trade between us is about 800 million. Same for investments. Of course, Namibia is important to us because of many, many reasons. It is a part of our broader, Africa strategy. And we have spoken a great deal about how Africa is capturing India's strategic imagination, not only for rare earth, and critical, minerals, but also for the location. Please remember, and here I think I should take you a little bit back to how the strategic picture of Namibia looks like. If you were to zoom into the map of the African continent, you will see where Namibia is located. So Namibia is located on the other side of Africa from us. So it's not a part of the Indian Ocean region, because Indian Ocean region sort of ends at the eastern coast of Africa. It is a very important port for the Atlantic Ocean. And if you carefully see how the Chinese have been investing in port infrastructure across Africa, I mean, it is way, way, way more than what they are doing in terms of their string of pearls in South Asia. So there is overwhelming Chinese presence in Namibia. You were mentioning some trade figures of it. I'll just give you some comparative analysis that while we have about 800 million worth of trade, and the US, by the way, who's another big player in the African region, has only about 400 million worth of trade with them. It is China. The total trade with China is $25 billion. And out of that, most of it has got to do with critical rare earths, etc. So it isn't Namibia's trade export surplus, which means that China is buying all those things from Namibia. So that's the first part, that we have to understand that in the great scramble for Africa, China has reasserted not only port infrastructure, there is a port called, I'm forgetting the name, there is a very important strategic port, in Namibia, which actually serves as the gateway for accessing other landlocked countries in that part of the region. So China has overwhelming presence in that part. That's one. So we have to be there in order to assert our rightful leadership and voice of being the leaders of the global South. It is imperative that India doubles down on our engagement there. That's the first part. The second part is got to do with the information control that China has there, because there is almost no US 5G company there. It's completely Huawei, which has dominated Namibia. And from India's perspective, I think it is a great beginning that we have offered our digital payments, etc. I mean, that's one of our very successful tools, So we look at that, and that's a welcome step. And the third thing is that we already have a framework by which we try and do more military exercises. I'm not here referring to the defense industry, because even in the Namibian defense industry right now, if you look at the figures, China is the biggest partner there. China sells many more. Namibia imports most of its defense equipment from China. Then it also imports some from South Africa, some from US. US, here and there, but the primary player out there is again China. So I'm here not referring to defense industry. I'm referring to defense cooperation per se, about military exercises. And India and Africa have conducted their first maritime military exercise. Namibia was a part of that, so I wouldn't read too much into it. But at the same time, there is a lot of capability, capacity development that we can do, something that I argued in the similar fashion for countries like Ghana, etc. So I think those are things where we can be looking at.
Right.
And in my opinion, in the great scramble for Africa, I think it's high time that India asserts its rightful presence, with these countries.
Okay. All right. One, let me just correct myself. Dr. Swasti Rao is now teaching at the OP Jindal University here in the National Capital Region. Let me go to Sushil Kumar Singhal. Ambassador Singhal, Dr. Rao was talking about how, Africa is hugely invested in Namibia and other African countries. When we talk about the Africa outreach, this comparison with China always comes. We don't have the kind of deep pockets that China has, one. Secondly, the kind of investment that China has already, done, the engagement over the years. We sort of woke up late, and the kind of cooperation, both developmental and other, and trade and investment the Chinese have, we are no match. So what should what is India's strategy when it comes to Africa? Is it different from China? Because the critique of the Chinese is that they follow the debt trap diplomacy, and we follow a certain kind of in making inroads through our soft power.
Well, there's no doubt that China has made inroads in Africa, and
Ambassador Singhal, we seem to have a bad connection with you, so we'll try and correct that and get back to you. But let's turn once again to Professor Rao. Dr. Rao, the critical minerals, that's something that Namibia has no shortage of. And of course, it's looking at the future. This is the area that everyone wants to, get first mover advantage in a sense. So in this context, I mean, you talked a little bit earlier of China's, investments and strategies in Africa. But here's something that perhaps India could also develop its own expertise in to take advantage of, because all these are technologically driven. These are industries. These are requirements for India's technological self-reliance.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's hardly anything to disagree with you about on this particularly, that India is doubling down on the reality of just how complicated the critical rare earth chain is, whether it is about extraction or whether it is about refinement. Because if you look carefully, as far as extraction is concerned, China dominates about 60 to 61% of that chain. And then when you look at the refining of critical minerals is concerned, then China dominates about more than 90% of that chain. So there is no doubt, especially with Donald Trump and his very wayward policies on trade, the way it is sort of playing out in the realm of critical rare earths, etc., it's obviously imperative that India takes its own India makes its own initiative, takes its own initiatives. Now, when every single time when I talk about critical rare earths, I think it's also important to keep in mind certain important realities, which is that it is extremely expensive to sort of invest into these kind of facilities, to actually put together a resilient supply chain, extraction chain of critical rare earths, and especially that of uranium. Uranium oxide is something which is found abundantly in Namibia, and apart from other critical rare earths as well. So for sure, India should have a more systematic approach towards these. The thing to remember is that perhaps India may not be able to do it all alone when you consider time as a factor. And for that, I've always argued that it is always better to get into triangular cooperation mechanism. Remember that we enter into a lot of triangular cooperation, which is different from trilateral cooperation. The technical difference between the two, very simply, is that trilateral framework simply means the three countries come together for convergences on certain issues, strategic issues or foreign policy, economic issues, whatever. But a triangular cooperation is when two countries come together to put together a developmental, a project in a third country. So we already have that kind of an extensive triangular cooperation model working well with countries like France, with countries like Germany. We're also trying some with countries like, Italy. The European Union, which is a very non-militaristic actor, also invests heavily in these projects, especially developmental projects. The G7 also has certain projects which are working on clean energy corridors, etc., in Africa and in Latin America. So I've always given these examples. It would be a great idea for India.
What I was earlier trying to ask Sushil, as a single, we've lost the connection with him. We'll try and reconnect. How is and should India's outreach to Africa be different from the Chinese model? Because one, simply you cannot compete with them. You do not have the kind of deep pockets. You do not have the kind of defense equipment to give to the others. You still starting with that make in India, make for the world, etc. But they are already heavily invested. So how different should it be so that Africa is open to us?
Sure, that's a great question. And actually, that is a question that requires a lot of analytical clarity. So if you ask me, I would say that obviously India is not China and India should not be China. India's value in the world remains when India remains India, which is that India is the only major country whose rise has not been destabilizing. And there is a lot to unpack in that statement that I just said. Similarly, I think when it comes to our engagement with Africa, of course, we all understand that Africa is this massive mammoth continent. So how do you develop this one size that fits all? No, the one size cannot fit all. It is natural that India would have more concentration on the eastern coast of Africa, where we've been traditionally present, which is a part of the Indian Ocean region, versus the western coast, which is where Namibia is. That's the one part. So you will always have that gradation. So let's sort of establish it at the outset that one size cannot fit all. That's one. The second thing, what India can do, and which I very strongly believe in, is that India's value would lie in actually being a trustworthy diversification partner. If you go and talk to the Namibians, of course, they are very well aware, not just Namibians, you pick up any country from Africa. Why do you think India enjoys this reputational advantage as it does? The thing to remember is that, yes, we cannot put the same investments. We cannot really do that same kind of port infrastructure that, for example, the Chinese company do all the time.
How should our approach be different, Dr. Rao?
Yeah, so I think one thing is to also join hands with like-minded partners in order to give them a diversification option. So we can play a huge role in those countries building their resilience, because they don't want to be caught into the debt trap that comes with Chinese loans and investments. So even they are eager for that kind of a multi-vector foreign policy. It is true that it is not an equal distribution, but that is a role that India can play. And most of it is dependent on capabilities. Let's just understand and accept that we don't have that kind of capability. Soft power is not going to take us too long and too far, especially when we're talking about strategic, things. But
what about sharing our developmental learnings? I mean, we've risen out of poverty. We've gotten, through various schemes, people out of poverty. We have fintech, UPI to share with the world, especially, the developing world. And what about sharing your developmental experiences with them?
We are already doing that, Amrit. We are already doing that. All I'm saying is that that's not going to be a game changer. Okay, the game-changing objective can perhaps only be envisioned if we are able to, project ourselves and give ourselves as a trustworthy, reliable, diversification partner. Because yes, it's true that all of this, Huawei has run into a lot of trouble there. East Europe, Africa, Latin America, China is having trouble, a lot of trouble, okay? But at the same time, because these countries are not strong democratic countries, they have been always at the receiving end of getting so much criticism from the Washington consensus, and that is why the Beijing consensus and the BRI-style loans have worked so well in these regions, isn't it? So I think what we need to do is sustained engagement. We also need to understand that time is a vector. So obviously we don't have all the sweet time in the world to just tell them that we are a trustworthy partner. Of course, there is a reputational advantage that we have, and we must be able to sort of convert that reputational advantage into a diversification partner for them, because they are also worried about the fate of many BRI loans when they go wrong. And like I said, and that's why I've been focusing so much on joining hands with like-minded partners, because let's face it, China cannot be countered with
Dr.
with
Rao,
one step here or one country there.
Obviously, Namibia has plenty of potential in terms of its economy because it's rich in natural resources. And also recently there are oil and gas discoveries there as well, which, India is looking for energy security from every angle, every possible source. So in this context also, I mean, Indian investments can increase. $800 million of investment so far in a country with such potential is probably, underweight, one would think.
Yes, I totally agree. I mean, this is a common theme that we have been exploring with many African countries, not just Namibia. These are countries that are blessed with a lot of natural resources, whether it's oil, gas, diamond, gold. Remember at Ghana, there was so much discussion on gold that India imports so much of its gold. Similarly, in Namibia, it's about diamonds and natural resources. And the important thing for us, and this one thing that is for our reflection as well, which is that why is it that despite having such massive reputational advantage and everything, we haven't really engaged these countries as much. So it is true that we have in the past missed the bus. There have been very few high-level meetings that I can think of. I mean, I may get my data wrong, but perhaps this is the only third ministerial meeting from a prime ministerial meeting from our side.
No, it is the third, yes.
Yeah, third. And I think it was, last year or a couple of years ago when External Affairs Minister Jaishankar went there, and he also put in place a lot of things. So why is it that we are not able to have a sustained engagement of these countries?
Let me take that. Let me take, Dr. Rao, that question to Ambassador Sushil Kumar Singhal, who's joined us back. Ambassador Singhal, Dr. Rao argues that, when it comes to comparison with China, you've missed the bus, or at least you're way behind when it comes to sustained engagement with Africa as a continent, Namibia as a country. Some countries in Africa you may have had more cooperation than others. But why is that we are where we are and China stands where it does?
Well, the thing is that, it's all a function of, your developmental assistance capacity also. That India is in a stage, was on a stage, I would say, that we were not able to offer very meaningful, in the sense, meaningful is not a right word actually, that try to match with China. China's, agenda has been quite different. They were looking for securing resources and trying to keep these countries everywhere in the debt trap. So, which was not the case with India. India's agenda has always been, when it comes to the developmental assistance, has always been that we try to build capacities. If you look at kind of line of credit we give and kind of conditions China puts and kind of conditions we put, it's totally different. We always believe that the country to whom the line of credit or even the grant is given should have a say in the project, which is not the case in other countries, particularly China. So, but coming to, yes, we have been lagging behind China. Because we didn't have that kind of heft, which is now there. Now we are on the catch-up sort of a game that we are trying to. So far, we have been, giving assistance under ITEC program mostly. But now line of credit we are giving and kind of numbers we are talking about is totally different. So and now we have a very focused attention on Africa. And the engagement, when it comes to the engagement, yes, again, I agree that the way China engages with Africa, India was not in a position to engage in that manner, politically and otherwise. But I think we are on the correction course, I must say, admit
Right.
that. Now we are trying to make up for the lost time. And when we are talking, then, when we are engaging in, we are organizing these Global South summits. This is the third, we have already organized in the last 2-3 years, 3 summits, where we have spoken about what is the what are the concern of global south, including Africa, and we are able to bring them on the forefront. So we are even not only in G20 but also now recently in the BRICS summit. When we spoke, we speaking about the concern of global south, and now the world is recognizing that what China, some countries like China are doing, what India is doing is totally different. We are engaged on a long-term basis, with the aim to create capacities in them to take decisions and take the developmental agenda forward. And the most of the countries are realizing, including our neighboring countries, that they are getting into that trap when we are talking with dealing with the China, which is not the case in India. In fact, some of the neighboring countries we have helped to get out of that trap, because otherwise they would have been in very difficult situation. So similarly in Africa, I have been to a few countries, and I've seen closely how they have got into the that trap and how they are looking for India, towards India, to help them to get out of that trap and build the capacities. So
Indeed.
this is how the trajectory is.
Singhal, I'll come back to you for more on that. We'll try and expand on the full potential of possibilities and in terms of trying to improve ties with Namibia. But let's look at economic ties between India and Namibia. They continue to grow steadily, and we're going to take you inside a diamond processing unit run by an Indian company that's training and employing Namibians on the ground.
I'm at Ankit Gems here in Namibia, the oldest factory of diamond cutting and polishing set up by an Indian. And just ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit, this facility is a clear example of how Indian investment is adding value locally and also strengthening the economic ties between the two countries.
Ankit Gems brought a game-changing model to Namibia's diamond sector: process locally, employ locally. Today, hundreds of Namibians work here, many trained in high-precision diamond cutting. The Indian company's presence supports Namibia's long-standing vision, retain more value from its natural resources, and provide long-term employment to its citizens.
We are very happy here polishing diamonds, so it's been a really good experience.
I've been working as an export and import operator. Then now I'm doing traceability, so that every stone that anybody from outside buys, they are able to trace it on our traceability and see from rough to finished polishing.
We are employed 130 people Namibian, and we are teaching them and then employed, because there is no institute for diamond and anything, and we are looking forward better from government as well.
Namibia is among the world's top producers of gem quality diamonds. India, meanwhile, is the global hub for cutting and polishing. Together, the two countries are creating a win-win partnership where Namibia moves up the value chain and India contributes through technology, training and trust.
As Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set to visit Namibia, ventures like Ankit Gems reflect a deeper story of growing India-Namibia partnership, which is creating jobs, generating employment, and a promising future. With camera person Alok, this is Siddharth Bhardwaj reporting for DD India in Namibia.
Ambassador Singhal, India's investments in Namibia have been in things like gems and jewelry and all that. But when we look at, for the long term, one really needs to look at infrastructure, mining, some serious kind of investments in digital technology and all that. Is India willing to, go the full way in terms of trying to increase investments in sectors which are going to give a multiplier to the Namibian economy?
No, I'm sure because this like I was earlier when I was talking about the investments in Africa. That was a CII report which I was referring to. That we have India has invested about $75 billion in Africa, and by 2030 they are expecting that the 150 this investment FDI will increase to $150 billion in next 5 years. So clearly now the Indian the companies are looking towards Africa, and they see the potential, and they realize that the African market is the one where the investments can be very beneficial for them, because ultimately is the any company private company which is investing will look for the benefit, of course, for the host country as well as for themselves, because they are answerable to the shareholders. So now they're realizing, of course, Namibia has about $800 million investment. You just showed the factory about the diamond processing factory, where they're imparting training to the locals. So it's part of the capacity building, and they have, of course, invested in the zinc mine also there, because they have a very large resources of zinc. And now rare earth, I think the Prime Minister's visit is going to be instrumental in India's because search for the rare earths. India is looking for all the possible avenues wherever we can source rare earth. We have, I think, the government of India itself will be willing to invest, because I know that there are, public sector corporate companies who are dedicated for the purpose. So, and they are in talk already with the Namibian government and as well as with other government. But since we are talking of Namibia particularly, they are already in discussion with them. So I'm quite hopeful that in very short time we see that Indian investment in rare earth, and as you also mentioned about this oil and gas sector, which is newly developed sector in Namibia. So Indian private companies are looking for opportunities, and I'm sure in next very short period of time, the Indian investment will increase in Namibia, despite it being a small size, but it is very critically important because of its geographical location and the resources and the capacity of Indian companies to do better there. So I'm confident that things will change, will improve further.
Dr. Rao, why is Namibia important, or how is it important from a strategic point of view, apart from the rare earths and the critical minerals? Its location, your defense from a from a geopolitical point of view, a strategic point of view.
Is that question for me, Amrit?
That's right, ma'am.
Oh, I see. All right. Yeah. So, yes, of course. I mean, I started the points that I was actually mentioning about with the saying that it is the location. If you remember, I said that India's engagement with Africa cannot really be an equal distribution in its own way, because it's a mammoth continent. And when we are talking about Africa, there would be regions that are going to be more relevant to our immediate strategic interest and our strategic backyard, which is certainly the Indian Ocean region. And therefore, I gave an example of why we continue having more presence on the eastern coast of Africa, whether it's through EU missions or whether it's the CMF missions, because they form that part of that Indian Ocean theater. However, on the western side, and especially talking about Namibia, because I was just repeating myself so far, if you look at Namibia particularly and its location at the Atlantic, Ocean, that coast, Atlantic coast, you do see that from India's perspective, right now, under current geopolitics, it makes much more sense for us to be present. Of course, we all know that we have been building capacity we have doing some maritime exercises, etc. So all that is there. But I'll tell you something else that makes it really important, that India must have a constant engagement with Namibia, and especially, the port in that region out there, because of two reasons. One is that, of course, the Walvis port happens to be the main gateway for accessing other landlocked African countries. So that's one part which is very obvious, and we do not want China to completely dominate it. Okay. The second is that, especially with respect to the disturbance that you see in the Red Sea region, the Bab el-Mandeb, etc., all this tension around the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, if you know that after October 7 attack by Hamas on Israel in 2023, most of Indian ships, the maritime commerce, has basically been routed, through the Cape of Good Hope. So because of that, and if you see if Namibia is present right there at the tip, it makes sense for us to be present there as well in whichever way we can. So joint exercises we are doing, but at a Pan-African level, we have to also think of more, presence, on the port in terms of our own exports and imports, and by way of our other investments. So that it's many, many reasons why it is the right time for India to step up that engagement because of a lot of geopolitical turmoil and upheaval as well. Back to you.
Okay.
Ambassador Singhal, we remember the project Cheetah and how they have been successfully relocated. You were also mentioning it earlier. To what extent, has this helped build trust? Also, can this kind of diplomacy in the environmental space sort of shape ties with Namibia and also with many other countries in Africa, which are rich also in, let's say, sources for renewable energy like solar for one?
Well, you mentioned about of course, I also mentioned about the project Cheetah. This gives a sort of a confidence between the, two sides on the, wildlife side, that India is a willing and capable partner, because it's very important for them to understand. And coming to the clean energy, International Solar Alliance, most of the countries in Africa have become member of the International Solar Alliance, and the advantage which they are able to reap is that most of the population in African countries either is concentrated in the metros or otherwise is widespread. So they don't have access to the clean energy, lights, power sources. They have to use, the traditional source, which is not good for them. So what this solar energy helps them is that they don't require transmission lines. So any cluster of villages, which is very sparsely populated, it doesn't cost that much for them to have a solar plant which provides clean energy to them. And they are now benefiting from them. The government of India is very focused and providing underground, small projects, and they have become sort of a showcase that this also is possible. And now they are, African countries are willing to take line of credit from India, bilaterally as well as under alliance also, to set up these solar power projects, because as you know that Africa is with has a great gift of solar power, the sunlight round the year almost, because of their location. So it is very much suitable to them, and India is now coming as a major source or as a development partner and source for the clean energy in Africa. And because I've seen it myself personally in many countries where their people have benefited in the far away, which are away from the metros, which is the really requirement of those countries. So the International Solar Alliance, the initiative which is India has launched, is playing a key role in providing clean energy and, of course, helping them to achieve some of the SDGs. This is clean energy is one of the most important goal of the SDGs by 2030.
Yes, Dr. Rao, if we continue with the theme of other areas of cooperation apart from what was considered standard in the old days, with the advantage that India has in terms of gems and jewelry, but when we look at cultural, ecological diplomacy, all these sort of new soft diplomacy powers that India has, to what extent can they be utilized in the African continent?
Well,
no, sir, this is for Dr. Rao. Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
No, I think both of us suffer from that because there's a bit of an audio lag when you're switching, so we have a problem understanding who is it for. But I am firmly of the view that this is something that the ambassador can answer much better than me. I honestly don't look at soft power. I mean, I can give you a generic reply. He can give you an expert's reply. So I prefer you to redirect that question to him. I'll take care of the defense and the strategic side.
Okay, sure.
But I think
Go
this
ahead.
question can be much better.
But Dr. Rao, is it because you think that softness takes you thus far and no further?
Now that's a very loaded statement. I don't think softness only takes us thus far and no further. I am of the opinion that there is no real status without real power, and real power will only come with capabilities. So our soft power will always be able to have more influence in the world if it is coming along with the real capabilities.
The hard power, okay.
The hard power. So I am a firm believer in that, and I think soft power alone doesn't take the story too far, especially in a world which is getting very militarized and entering a kind of a global, so to say, a heated war-like scenarios in multiple theaters at once. But at the same time, I do firmly believe, of course, that India must be able to sort of convert its reputational advantage. And when I say the reputational advantage, of course, the soft power has a role. But with that, I think it's ambassador who can really answer that much better and add more substance to your question.
Ambassador Singhal, then I was talking more about ecological diplomacy from that point of view, and also with the emergent threats, of climate change. India has the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, also the International Solar Alliance. These are significant aspects where not only Namibia but most of Africa can participate.
Oh, certainly, because see, the thing is that this climate change is a real threat, real existential threat to humanity. And Prime Minister Modi personally is convinced that India has to take a leading role in this area, because not many major powers are focused on this area, though everybody is facing this problem. And you mentioned about the coalition for disaster management. This, this coalition is again the brainchild of the Prime Minister Modi. And what I have seen is that, this is preparing the countries who are very, very much affected or are threatened, particularly in, Pacific, the islands, and even in Africa, because the ecology again is being challenged because of the various factors, including, as we talked about, the Solar Alliance, that the Earth is not able to take the kind of pressure which we are putting. Who is to be blamed? Of course, we can have a debate on that. But the point is that every country is suffering from that. So somebody has to help in mitigating that. We have to take, and India has become a voice of the globe. Global voice on this aspect that ecological challenges need to be addressed, and it has to be handled, and countries who are facing this challenge need to be equipped to how to mitigate this ecological disaster, in which India is playing I would say a very good role, not only in creating awareness, but also creating capacities through various coalitions or bilaterally even. And this is recognized. When I say that, the hard power and soft power, in my view, both of them have to go together. If you have only hard power, then you may be like, some of the countries who are not liked. But soft power is also very important, because we have to look into the issues which the humanity is facing, and this touches the heart of everybody. And I've seen it, it's all demonstrated all around, that whenever there is an international crisis, be it Houthis, Yemen, or wherever you see, Iraq, or recently Iran, we had been able to get our citizens just because of our reputation, because we have the people understand, countries understand what India stands for. So this is very, very, I would say, useful and important role which India plays in this regard.
Okay.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Namibia, it's significant because it's going to boost defense ties as well between India and Namibia. Now, India continues to extend development assistance and capacity building support to Namibia through scholarships, defense training programs and technical cooperation. The High Commissioner of India to Namibia, Rahul Srivastav, spoke to DD India in depth. Let's listen.
As far as defense ties are concerned between both the countries, they are flourishing with each passing year, with each passing day, should I say. Naval ships from India, they keep having a goodwill visits to the Namibian ports, and personnel from Indian Army and Indian Air Force are also deployed here to train defense personnel of Namibia. So how are the defense ties as of now, and how are they likely to be in the future?
Yes, defense relations are good, but there is scope for improving that. Yeah. And Prime Minister's visit will surely facilitate that, because Namibia right now is looking for import of defense equipment from India. They are especially interested in UAVs, then light helicopters, maritime equipment for training.
Namibia also has 2 Chetak and 2 Cheetah helicopters by India?
Yes, and we have 4 officials from the Indian Air Force who provide training to Namibians.
India is leading the way when it comes to digital payments, when it comes to UPI. And this is happening for the first time, that the NPCI is having an agreement or collaboration with the Central Bank of Namibia for united payments interoperability. What do you think about that? Because Namibia will be having a UPI-like payment structure, and it is expected to roll out in the month of September. I think the technological agreement here has been done, but with Prime Minister's visit, it will be taken forward. What is the take on that? How it will be taken forward?
Yes, so the agreement is there, but when it will start is something that both India and Namibia are working at. NIPL was indeed the first agreement that they signed with any country was with Namibia, so that way it's quite significant. And once this happens, like it has happened in India, there will be a revolution happening in Namibia, because like UPI has done in case of India, you will have financial inclusivity, you'll have a comprehensive digital payment infrastructure, and you'll have financial transparency plus ease of business. You can transfer money faster, and more importantly, because we have one of the India stacks now in Namibia, that will also open roads for other experiences from India to come to Namibia, maybe RuPay or ease of transfer of money to India.
All right, so that was Rahul Srivastav, the Indian High Commissioner, talking about areas where India can take or is looking at taking the partnership forward. Dr. Swasti Rao, I'm told you have to go, but before I let go of you, what could we expect materialize during this visit of the Prime Minister?
So just a couple of things I kind of realized that I have not mentioned, which would be very relevant to the discussion we are having here, is that I think one needs to take note of the fact that the relevance of Africa and relevance of many such regions which are important to us, but we never really had a sustained presence or engagement with, has been developing, particularly talking about the Ministry of Defense. You know, in 2024, of course, the decision was taken much before that, but it was made public in 2024. You know, India posted 16 new defense attaches across Africa. In Namibia, we have a defense attaché. I was just listening to what our High Commissioner was talking about there, and I kind of realized that this is something that we need to talk about. And when the Ministry of Defense, of course, here we do take a stock of, for example, what are the business opportunities, etc. But talking about defense and strategic ties, which of course is my mainstay, so therefore I'm coming back to it again. If you carefully see the way Ministry of Defense approaches, our strategic partnerships and our strategic focus on many of these regions has now become extremely holistic. So I can certainly tell you that if you look at the strategic parameters, it is not just about buying and selling of equipment or co-building of equipment, as we now talk about in line with India's self-reliance, etc. actually, when you look at the strategic parameters which are used to sort of ascertain the importance and relevance of regions, and talking specifically about Africa, why is it that we took such a huge decision of deploying so many defense attaches in Africa, was also because everything strategic relevance is actually put together. So, our niche capabilities that we can give to them, the critical rare earths, what way can they sort of help in ways in which we can help in building their capacitation. All of these strategic parameters are put together. So this is something that I guess the audiences should also know, which is that we are really looking at Africa in a big way. And there, like I said, I was personally very satisfied to see that Namibia, we have this presence because the western coast is also important to us for reasons I just told you about.
Okay.
So those would be my concluding thoughts. And thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Swasti Rao, for being on the show.
Well, Ambassador Singhal continues to be with us. Ambassador, when we look at defense cooperation, after all, this is South-South cooperation, and India brings certain abilities to the table. To what extent, can South-South cooperation in the defense sector sort of enhance the other alliances that are built around the global South?
Well, this defense is a very important aspect of any relationship, and the way now India is expanding, because earlier we were the net importer. Now we are moving in the direction of exporting not only the equipment but also expanding on providing training and ensuring interoperability. So that is an aspect which I think, like Professor Rao just mentioned about India, appointing many new defense attaches in Africa, particularly, which we have done actually around the world also. But Africa has been in focus because we had very thin presence in Africa. So the advantage what we are doing is we are not only we are providing training, first of all, to the militaries in Africa. And Namibia, since we are talking of Namibia, so let me focus on Namibia. Namibia, particularly, what we're doing is we are creating capacities and ability to undertake complex exercises, which helps when there is a natural disaster or any other emergency situation. The forces, particularly Navy, they are able to operate in tandem with each other, and because they all understand how they work together. So, and along with that is the exports of the Indian defense equipment, because they realize when they use the Indian equipment during the training and otherwise, like we have gifted some 2 or 3 Cheetah helicopters, and we have Indian trainers to train the Namibian Air Force. So they realize the quality of the quality and ease of using Indian defense equipment. So which goes into other areas. Then this we can talk about maybe around in the future, the joint exports and things like that, which helps. So the advantage of working together in defense is not only in the defense operations, but also in natural disaster, which is very important because India has been always, in this region. India has been in the region of in a neighboring region. India is the first responder, as we say. Always, whenever there is a emergent, natural disaster, or even there is a hostage situation, because the area, some of the areas are very difficult nowadays for shipping lines. So India is always the first responder. So if we have the navies whom we are comfortable, we are aware of each other, so working together becomes very easy for them. So these are the the advantage.
Well, we are getting some visuals coming in from Namibia. This is of Prime Minister Narendra Modi receiving a ceremonial reception
at the State House, which is basically the office of the President of Namibia. So the Prime Minister Modi, getting a ceremonial reception at the State House of Namibia.
And we stay with these visuals for a moment, as we can see.
So the Prime Minister arrived in Namibia this morning. After landing, he was received by the Foreign Minister, and right now the ceremonial reception at the State House.
And has had a long, illustrious political career. She has also been the Minister for International Relations and Cooperation, in fact, for a good 12 years until she became the President, which happened this year. So, a former Foreign Minister of Namibia and currently the country's President. She's also been a Vice President before.
I'm told I'm joined by Ms. Ruchita Berry. She's a senior fellow at the Vivekananda International Foundation here in Delhi. Thank you, Ms. Berry, for being on the show. Your thoughts on the significance of this visit by the Prime Minister, only the third Indian Prime Minister to visit Namibia, and one after more than quarter of a century. Why now, and what's the significance?
Yeah, I think this is really a very historic visit by Prime Minister to Namibia. The Prime Minister is visiting Namibia for the first time, and he's visiting like this is a visit by Prime Minister of India to Namibia after really a very long gap of decades.
Yeah, 27 years.
It is extremely important to note that Namibia is a country which is rich in natural minerals, particularly critical minerals, and nuclear resources like, the uranium resources. So they become very important for our energy partnership. So what India is seeking from Namibia is an energy partnership, a critical minerals partnership with Namibia, and also this gives an opportunity to boost the historic relations that had with Namibia. India was the first country which took the issue of Namibia's freedom to the United Nations way back in the decades back, and after its independence in 1990, India has enjoyed close relations with the country. So I think this visit is important, first for the fact that it will renew our ties with this southern African country, and also we will get into a critical minerals partnership with them.
Indeed, Ms. Berry, also when we look at the road ahead, I mean, a prime ministerial visit would obviously provide a huge impetus to the future cooperation of the two countries. To what extent, can we see new areas that are going to emerge from this visit of the Prime Minister?
So I think there are several areas which are important. I mentioned already critical minerals. We signed an agreement with Namibia for uranium supply in 2009. Now, uranium supply is crucial for India for its civil nuclear program, and which is very important for us in terms of our energy security. India is trying to diversify its sources. It's not depending on hydrocarbons. It's depending on renewables and on clean energy. So nuclear energy is clean. And there are very limited countries which can supply that. So we are hoping that this visit will lead to a long-term supply agreement with Namibia on continuous supply of uranium from that country to India. That is one. And secondly, the critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, or the rare earth elements, which Namibia is rich in, and which is very needed, really needed for our green energy transition, for our electric vehicles, and some of them, the rare earth elements, are also needed for our defense production. So if we critical mineral partnership materializes between India and Namibia, that would be really helpful.
All right, you get the critical and rare earth minerals from them. Ambassador Singhal, what can we give them?
Well, what we can give them is, for me, is trade, as mentioned, and security. I think is very important pillar, and capacity building, because Namibia needs a lot of help in capacity building in the form of investments or even training, which we are going to give, and I think to receive a boost, and energy resources. When we come to energy, of course, we already talked about this clean energy and rare earths, critical minerals, zinc, lithium.
That we can get from them. My question was, where can we come in the picture, and what can we give them?
That's our capacity building is one area. We are FDI. For FDI security, which will provide them security assistance. We are already providing and will provide them further. And as I said, FDI, because they critically need FDI, and Indian companies are, as I mentioned, is looking for investment in Namibia. So we will be able to, and of course, mitigating the climate changes and all. These are the main area, in my view, that India will provide them: trade, investment, and capacity building.
Apart from trade, investment, capacity building, I understand they would want to widen their basket. The Chinese already have their fingers in it. On security, why do they need you? The Chinese are hugely invested in that.
Well, they also realize that that they need to be sort of independent of any country. So any country would like to have these options. So, and India is emerging as one of the options for them. That's why we are already working with them. As I mentioned, we have gifted them some Cheetah helicopters, and we are giving them training. So they don't know. I don't think any country would like to be in the
solely dependent on one particular player.
Yeah. So sorry.
I said I get your point. You're arguing that they wouldn't want to have a dependence on just one player.
Yeah, that is what I was saying. So they would like to have the options, and India is one of the very good option for them, because they realize, they also know, India does not interfere in anybody's affair, nor want to take any advantage of any vulnerability. So India is a very dependable partner for them, or for any country for that matter. So India will come out as an option, and that is why they are looking for Indian equipment also because they realize when it comes to some of the countries, they have very specific requirements, and they ensure that even the spare parts comes from them only. And there are some issues which I don't want to go at this moment, but they realize that there are problems on depending on one country. And as I said about this this disaster relief and other areas which we are already working, so they would like to work with us. I think this confidence level is much higher.
I want to stick on the
नेतृत्व के साथ प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की ये मुलाकात गर्मजोशी के साथ
these visuals of Prime Minister at the State House, of course the President of Namibia with him, the Prime Minister signing the visitors book, the two leaders. This was just after the Prime Minister received a ceremonial welcome, and after this handshake, the two leaders, the Prime Minister signed the visitors book, and the two leaders go in for bilateral talks. Later in the day, the Prime Minister will be addressing a joint session of the Namibian Parliament. So right now, the Prime Minister at the State House, which is basically the President's Secretariat, the President's office, received by the President herself. The two leaders now
all the Prime Minister's engagements will be, the official engagements will be in the State House itself. First there was the ceremonial welcome that you talked about, then they have had a tete-a-tete, so to speak, and then they have, the Prime Minister has signed the visitors book, following which they will have delegation level talks and the signing of MOUs and the exchange of MOUs.
That's right.
So that's the order in which things will take place.
And later he goes to the Parliament to address address the joint session of the Namibian Parliament. So this is what is presently on. I have my guest back with me, Ambassador Singhal. I wanted to stay more on our security partnership. So you were saying that they have their needs and they would want to widen their basket and not just depend on one person, on one player. So that's where we come in, and it also fits in our policy of make in India, make for the world. But would it be a buyer-seller relationship? Because the whole security domain, would India go all the way around from the down of the African continent to them, which is not even our theater of really influence?
Well, what you're saying is absolutely right, but you don't know how the future will devolve or which will happen. Things will happen. So I think what we are trying to do now is that we are keeping the options for the future, in my view, because if we have a friendly country and who need help, so and we are in position now to provide that help. So well, it would be, of course, initially it is going to be that they will buy Indian equipment. And if it becomes a critical mass, so I'm sure we can go for the even setting up, repair facilities in that area. So which will help in our exports of the defense equipment also, because as it is, we are already exporting about 22,000 crore worth of defense equipment, which has last 3 years it has gone up from 12 to 22. So the rate of growth of our exports is of the defense equipment is really increasing very fast, is very high, and we need to have different around the world. Then only we'll be able to export our products, defense products, if we are able to guarantee and provide services. So I think this is also one of the aspects which we'll be keeping in mind. Of course, it'll be a bit far off. It's not the area we operate, but I think we have to keep in mind that that we need to expand our footprint, and if we are an opportunity at a low cost, I don't see any reason why we should not look for that opportunity, make use of that opportunity, in my view.
Okay.
Indeed, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has received a 21-gun salute at that ceremonial welcome in Namibia, which we showed you a short while ago. Ms. Berry, if I can come to you. The first step is to enhance our cooperation, build better ties, but and then of course, depending on the threat perception that Namibia faces, maybe also advance defense cooperation. But in the context of institutional cooperation at the multilateral level, to what extent is Namibia always aligned with, let's say, India's interests and the Global South's interests?
Yeah, so for Prime Minister's visit, cooperation in the multilateral arena is really very important. He has pushed for that when he visited Ghana, he pushed for that when he was in Brazil, and in Namibia also. I think that's an important partnership that India is looking for. India wants a partnership with the Global South countries in the multilateral arena. India wants to lead the Global South as a voice of Global South in terms of projecting their problems and make them available and cite those issues at the various platforms wherever it is present, and also seek for greater representation for countries like Namibia at the UN, at the various organizations, whether plurilateral organizations like BRICS or G20. So India is for greater representation of African countries like Namibia in the multilateral forum, and likewise it wants their support for pushing India's agenda in these forums. So India wants their support for, say, India's candidature of the reformed UNSC. That is one thing that we are interested in.
Okay.
So I would also like to come back to what you had said earlier. What can India do for Namibia? I'm not talking about defense. On economic issues, it's not a simple supply-driven relationship that we are seeking with the Namibians. What are the Namibians interested in? Namibians are not interested in supplying the minerals to you. They don't want direct supply of these minerals. They want that India should help in beneficiation, that is the processing of these minerals within their country. So they want India to help in developing the infrastructure for refining these products within their country. So they don't want to have the similar kind of relationship as they had with their traditional partners like the Americans or the Europeans. They want a different style of partnership, and they feel that India will be able to deliver that. Because if you look at what has been India's Africa policy, India has said that it is unique, and it is unique because India believes in building the local capacities. It is demand driven. It is driven by the African countries like Namibia's demands. So I'm hoping that this will be the kind of partnership that India will build with Namibia too.
Okay. I want to go back to the global South point, to Ambassador Singhal. Ambassador Singhal, it's all very well to want to emerge, have an aspiration of being the leader of the Global South and put their aspirations, concerns at the heart of the conversation at the various multilateral fora, including the United Nations. But the fact also remains that the Global South does not have a collective interest when we saw that play out at BRICS. The statement, the joint statement that came out, for example, did talk about UN reform, but did not go as far as reforming the UN Security Council's permanent membership, etc. So the Global South also is not one monolith; it has some different interests. So how far does it go when the Prime Minister, if we look at this 5-nation tour, bilaterally you can have, because he's only gone to Global South countries this time around, you can bilaterally have your interests converge and cooperate on that, but at a larger level, it doesn't move much forward.
See,
I agree. Sorry.
That was for Ambassador Singhal, please.
Okay.
The thing is that I completely agree that global south is, is a divergent. Of course, there's one criteria of the global south that they're all developing country or underdeveloped countries, but they all have different interests. There is no doubt about it. So what we are looking for, or what India is looking for, or is trying to, is that give them on the common denominator. There are certain common denominator, like they need clean energy, for example. They need assistance in climate changes. They need developmental assistance, capacity building. So these are the areas which India is trying to lead them. And in that context, what India is saying, or the Prime Minister is saying, that these global institutions, be it UN, be it WTO, be it IMF or IBRD or World Bank, all are a legacy of last 80 years. And these global South countries mostly have emerged or became independent afterwards, after these were set up. There is no change in their membership. So what India is saying that these countries should be given a voice. When it comes to the reforms in UN Security Council, as we all know, there are different divergent groups, even the global south, because we have a coffee group, whatever you want to call it, which serves certain countries. So this aspect becomes very complicated because of this geopolitical game which are being played by the permanent members. But as far as the areas which I just outlined, I don't see any conflict among the global south countries, that they all aspire for that. And that is what India has been trying to do. These should be given a voice. Whether it comes X or Y, India is not saying for them. We're saying that the global south should be given a voice. When it comes to India itself, or the group 4, G4 as we call it, that is a different matter altogether. Though India, as far as India is concerned, there is globally I would say there is no opposition to India, barring few countries which we all know about, that because they have their vested interest. Otherwise, when the majority of the country are in favor of India, that India should have a place, should have a seat in the UN Security Council, because of all the parameters, when you look at whether it's population, GDP, or even peacekeeping operations, India's contribution is the highest.
All right. Okay. Let me bring in Ms. Ruchita Berry back into the debate. Ms. Berry, before you joined in, we were talking, the Ambassador Singhal was also saying that, the Chinese model, do the Chinese have greater investments, greater cooperation with with Namibia and the other African nations. Somewhere we lag behind for various reasons, but he says there is a very different approach that the two countries have. The Chinese have a debt trap diplomacy. That's what their objective really is, while our approach is to have a sustainable engagement where it's a win-win situation for both. Their capacity building happens, their development needs get answered, etc. But also this fact remains that the Chinese in the African nation have been able to give the Africans what they really want. How do the Africans look at us? What are their expectations from us, and how is it different from how they look at the Chinese?
Yeah, see, the Chinese have been, in the last 2.5 decades, China has really moved into most of the African countries they are present. They are present in a big way. They are, China is the largest trading partner for the African region as a whole, and for Namibia also, China is the largest trading partner. So China is dominating the relationship with Namibia and the African countries, other African countries, but they are interested in partnering with India. With India, they share an emotional bond. They have been connected with India, not just in the times of like their freedom struggle or that, the relationship with the larger African continent, particularly those in the Indian Ocean region, goes back to the beginning of this century, to the first century AD or even before that, But in case of Namibia, it's been mainly during its freedom struggle that we've been connected with, because Namibia was actually a part of South Africa earlier. They were earlier a German protectorate and then passed on to South Africa. So our struggle against apartheid, Namibia was with a part of South Africa at that point of time. Namibia's independence struggle began in the 60s, and that's the time when India started, 50s and 60s, that's the time when India started supporting Namibia. So there is a great emotional and social connect and a political connect with Namibia from those days, from the days of Sam Nujoma, who's the father of the nation of Namibia. So having said that, it is true that how does India now, get connected with a country which is so deeply into the Chinese hands, So, but you must understand that the Namibians are also interested in diversifying their relations. They are interested in having greater partners, and they are looking at the Asian countries like India. India is a democratic country. India is a country which has various experiences which they would like to emulate. Our experience in the digital infrastructure, our experience in developing technology, our plurilateral approach towards things. Those are the issues which connect the Namibians with India, and I think this tech-savvy partnership is something that India has been suggesting with a number of countries in Africa, and this is something which the Namibians would also be interested in. And also the fact that India's partnership is that which provides more leverages to the African countries. It helps in developing a sustainable relations which will not lead to debt, within their economy.
Right.
So that is also an important part of why the Namibians want to have closer relations.
Ambassador Singhal, if we can take this thought further that Amritpal has raised, and the way I see it is that the Chinese have been there for some time, and they have sort of developed, if not goodwill, they've developed a sort of influence, an influence that's strong and impacts the way the African countries think, and perhaps Namibia thinks. So India has to try and balance that already strong influence with whatever India wants to do in Namibia. To what extent is that diplomacy moving forward?
Well, I completely agree that China has made big inroads into Africa for various reasons. I will not go into those details, but the fact remains that China has been, as rightly said, they are the largest trading partner of Africa, about $200 billion worth business they do. We are fourth at $100 billion. So, already there is asymmetry when you talk about the bilateral trade. When you come to the investments, or bilateral investments or line of credits, China is far ahead of India, there is no doubt, because they have been giving loans or line of credits at very large scale to African countries. India has an advantage, which, as rightly pointed out, there is an emotional connect between India and African countries. We have a lot of goodwill, but goodwill can take us up to a point. We have to, to show that we are really involved and we are, willing to put our money beyond the top. So now India has embarked on that path, in the sense that earlier our focus was, I'm talking about 20, 30 years back, India's focus was on capacity building, high-tech programs, and we were giving some grant project. Line of credit was not that much popular. But now, what India is doing is that we are looking at the critical gaps, which are in the be it in the infrastructure, be it in the education. So we are trying to fill those gaps, help them in building their capacity. Again, I will emphasize that what India is trying to do is that we are trying to create capacity to understand their problems and how to solve them, because that will take them long way. And there is now realization among most of the African countries, though they are indebted to China, there is no doubt, because they have given a lot of money to them for various projects, and various projects are being done there. But they realize that keeping one relationship with only one country or one big power is not going to solve their problems. They need help, and India is in a unique position because India has also till recently undergone the same kind of problem which Africa is facing. So there is a connect, because when India offers solution to their problems, they are embedded in the practice, in the practicality, that we don't look for the high cost solutions, we look for the solutions which are low cost and serve their purpose. And which they are now realizing that Indian solutions to their problems are more effective than others which are offered by Western countries or some other countries. So that is what is helping us, and we need to make more effort. I think the kind of visit Prime Minister is taking, or the visit the EM is taking, is and they are focusing on developing that relationship at political level, because then we realize that that once we have the political directives, it percolates downwards. And so I think that is what is happening right now, and we will see the results in next 4 to 5 years.
All right. Ambassador Singhal, as you argue that capacity building is where we can come in, and especially on issues they need it, education, for example, or high-tech. Then, I mean, let the larger companies, the Ambanis, the Adanis go into their ports and this, that, but you need your smaller or your SMEs to go. Why can't your Shivnadars and what have you go and open universities there or colleges there, answer their educational need? Then why can't your Apollos go and open hospitals there? Why can't your BRO, which builds brilliant roads in very challenging terrains in Ladakh and on the borders, go and build their roads, their infrastructure?
Well, the thing is that, as I said, these are the areas where we need to sort of, Government of India has to give more encouragement, and maybe this Exim Bank and this Credit Guarantee Corporation can play an important role in this, because some of the countries, I think, are on were not on the approved list. So that is an aspect, I think, which we need to look at. So ensure that, and other is that, we have not signed many with the bilateral investment protection agreements with many of these countries, because any private investment at the large scale investment would need protection, which will be coming only when we have the formal arrangement with these countries. So the private investment, I think, will move big way into the African countries. Like, some of the countries, they're already there, like in South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, even Uganda, and some other countries, they are already there. But going on a large scale, I think what is required is the institutional framework is very important, which we need to, I think Government of India is aware of that, and they are looking into this. Because then only this investment protection, unless there is investment protection, the private sector will not move in. Very simple.
All right.
So we've been showing you visuals once again of Prime Minister's ceremonial reception, as well as his meeting one-on-one with President Ndetwa, and after that his signing of the visitor's book. Ms. Berry, once again, in the context of capacity building, since Ambassador has been talking about it so much, how successful has India's strategy of capacity building been across the world, and especially since we're talking about in Namibia?
Yeah, so India has, I can talk only about the African countries, and in Africa, sure, India's approach has been that, we are not just going to say develop any infrastructures, like, we are not going to develop, say, solar panel development factory in an African country and just let it be. Like, what India has style of engagement has been that it trains the local people, local, whether it is, whichever level it is, whether it is at the senior level or at the junior level, as to how to develop these things themselves, The training, the professional training is involved, so that they can take it forward. They are not dependent on Indian technicians, Indian office, management people to take a project forward after India has provided them with, delivered the project which was recommended by the African country. I was talking about Mozambique, where we had supplied, we had developed a solar, a module development plant. So that has been unique about India's partnership with the African countries, that it has been involved in capacity building. And now education, higher education is one field where India has really taken a big step in Africa. It opened up the first ever campus of the IIT Madras in Tanzania, so in Zanzibar in particular. So that showcased the fact that India is not asking the African students to come to India and study. It is ready to share its higher educational experience in the technology sector with the African country. So in Namibia also, I think there will be a lot of interest within the Namibians, that the Namibian students get an opportunity to study, especially in the field of higher education in the STEM sectors. Maybe a campus of IIT could be opened up in Namibia. That could be something which would come in future. But right now, I think we'll have to really take it one step forward in terms of enhancing our partnership, and higher education is one field that we can help in developing the capacities within the Namibian youth. That is something which we can take this forward. The second area is health. You were rightly saying that, or Amrit was saying that, that why can't Apollo go and set up a hospital there? It's not just about setting up the hospital, it's also about training in healthcare, It's the medical training, it's also the healthcare workers. In COVID pandemic, we realized that, there are so many things which India needed, So there is a lot of medical infrastructure, health infrastructure which is needed in our country. And unless you have that within your country, you are dependent on imports from various countries. So India can help the Namibians in setting up their health infrastructure and training their youth in becoming successful health workers or doctors or nurses, whatever they want. So this is another area which could be thought of, and India has a model for that. It has done that within in its own country, and it has been sharing its experiences with other countries in Africa. So be it with Namibia. So these two areas are again where we can enhance the capacities of Namibia.
Indeed, Ambassador Singhal. So when capacity building takes on a stronger form, it would lead to more people-to-people linkages, perhaps, and after that, more business-to-business linkages. But from the people-to-people contact point of view, I mean, to what extent can this be increased? We only have a small diaspora in Namibia.
450 people max.
True. Indian diaspora, I think, is one of the smallest in Namibia because normally Indian diaspora size is very big in most of the countries. Namibia, for the historical reasons, because most of the Indians they stopped at Mozambique or Angola or in South Africa, of course, they are large, but Namibia, I think they were sort of never been in that region. So Indian diaspora, yes, is small, and when it comes to the you're right, absolutely right, that people to people contact is important. But this is today is a globalized world, so it's I would not pay too much weightage to this. What India is doing, the capacity building, again, when we're talking about India and our ITech programs, we talked about the health infrastructure. We are providing training. I think what we need to do is special programs need to be which are focused on the sectors which Namibia needs. Because again, India, what normally does is that, on the need base, we do it, trainings or other things. So India can, certainly help by setting up a program. We have many programs under the ITEC, like trainer of trainers, and even we sent the trainers from India to conduct classes in various countries, including in Africa. So those kind of niche programs need to be developed for creating capacities, and I'm sure the Prime Minister's visit will help in that, identifying the areas where they need training. Public health, as pointed out, I think is very important. Then even education sector, we can certainly help them in training, in providing training and setting up the universities, because for that we need to develop, I think, a sector-specific programs which will help them to have a critical mass of the trained people, and then other sectors will follow, and the investments will also follow, because then only they will be able to take it up in that area. I think, in my view, this will be a better approach for Namibia.
Well, Mr. Berry, we continue to wait for visuals of Prime Minister from Namibia, from Windhoek, where the
delegation level
talks are currently on, and then there will be the MOUs. So what are we expecting, Ms. Berry, in terms of outcomes from this visit?
Yeah, so I think there'll be discussions on 3-4 issues. First is in terms of hydrocarbons. There is, as you are aware, discoveries made in Namibia of hydrocarbons, and while they are still not, they have immense reserves of hydrocarbons. They haven't started producing the crude oil at the moment, but they would definitely need India's support in developing the infrastructure, which comes with the production of crude oil, and India has done that in other countries. So I think that could be one area, because energy security is something which is very important for our economy. Our economy, given the fact that India is one of the largest consumer of energy in the world, so there is a great demand for energy, and while the world is going clean, we cannot do away with our needs for the hydrocarbon, for the crude oil, So that could be one area where there could be a discussion on. Second, as I had earlier mentioned, critical minerals like lithium, cobalt, rare earth minerals. This could be another, how India can help in developing that sector within Namibia. Third could be health. Health could be an area which could be discussed. Agriculture is another area which Namibia is interested in developing in a big way, and given the fact that India has been involved in agricultural production in its own country, so how can we share our experiences, and how can our private sector companies go and help the Namibians in dealing with that? And capacity building, I think that will be again an important area of discussion. pharmaceuticals. India is known as the pharmacy of the world. COVID-19 brought the stat to India because we delivered vaccines to a large number of countries. So how can we support the Namibians in their desire for getting cheaper medicines, and how can we help them in making them, independent in development of vaccines? That could be another area.
Ambassador Singhal, the President Ndetwa, she took office in March of this year, and she expressed as her priorities job creation. She wants to create 500,000 new jobs. She talked about agriculture, fishing, sports, and other creative aspects. To what extent can India fit in with her priorities?
Well, yeah, I think the India, let me take the agriculture. I think the India has a great capacity and ability to help them in generating development, employment in agriculture sector, because agriculture sector is one very much neglected there. And India has been providing training to various countries in the field of agriculture. So there certainly India can help. And also fisheries, again, India can help not only in the training, but also getting the, mechanized trawlers and equipment for making sustainable fishing, because that area is teeming with the fisheries and very rich in fishing resources. And many countries are taking advantage of that area, and they come to that area. So other aspect can be, we can help them like we are doing in the defense side, securing their EEZ. Thirdly, sports, yes, India, we have universities, so we can also do the training of their trainers. With like in Patiala or Bangalore, we have this facility. Other is, I think the very important is the IT area. I think Namibia will be very keen to have, have a go on the IT sector. So India can help very big way to set up, IT centers, including call centers. Start with the call centers, which is creates mass employments. And because of their geographical location, they can be very important for them. This is, suddenly came to my mind. But apart from that, we can also help them in, providing training for SME, small and medium enterprises, because India has an excellent institutions support for training these the small and medium enterprises. So, and another area can be that, we have these ITIs, which creates, the
430 se zyada nahi, 430 se zyada nahi.
Right, go on, sir. Yeah, that was a comment that ma'am was making to our panel. Yes, go ahead.
So ITI is another areas, another the center is we can use. We can provide them training in through the setting up the ITIs in Namibia, which will help them in achieving their goal of providing 500,000 employment or creating these employments. So these, I think, to my mind, comes to the very important.
Indeed. Ms. Berry, coming back to you now, President Ndetwa is also the first woman president of Namibia. To what extent do you think that this would bring in greater focus on issues of gender equality? I mean, in the greater scheme of things, and she has some people say that she has not been a strong believer in feminism. That's according to reports that I'm reading.
Yeah. So see, this is the first time that Namibia has a woman president, and I really appreciate the fact that because, and if she doesn't believe in feminism, because I think most of the women, at least professionals, feel that we can walk shoulder to shoulder we can do what a man can do, so we don't really need reservation. I mean, that's one school of thought about that, so she could be on maybe thinking on those lines. I'm not really sure. I haven't really studied her thought on feminism, but that could be one of the reasons why she may be saying that.
No, actually, I mean, I should clarify the argument. I mean, I'm not sure about. I don't have the facts, but according to this report that I'm reading, is that she is the wife of a former chief of defense forces, and she is very conservative in her views, apparently, about women's roles. That's according to this report on Wikipedia.
Well, I'm not sure whether you can trust Wikipedia so much in terms of getting the real source of, but that's to her, like I mean, her views on feminism. Most of the women in the world are striving for a greater role of women in each facets of a country's economy or security, and that is where women are in India. Women in India are in each and every field. They are in India's Navy. They are also ready to go to the moon or to the space today. So that is the height of Indian women's ambitions. I am not sure what is the ambition of the larger woman in Namibia. I think moving forward in terms of the areas that you were talking of, what are the other areas? UPI is another area, the Unified Payment Interface, which I think there is already some kind of discussions on agreement between the two countries on its rollout. But I think the interoperability is something which the discussions would take place.
Yeah, the NPCL is in talks with them. Yeah.
Yeah, we are in talks with them. Secondly, we were discussing security. How can we, work and cooperate with Namibia on security? And I was quite amazed by one of your comments earlier, where you said that why should India go all the way to Atlantic Ocean to Namibia? I mean, we have close security cooperation with Nigeria, which is even further off, or with Ghana, so why can't we have it with Namibia, which is at the tip of Southern Africa, and it is an important country in its geostrategic position, so I think it will be important that we develop a healthy maritime cooperation with them. There is already, Indian Navy has been regularly in our naval vessels have been visiting Namibia of late. So how can we enhance that? How can we, illegal fishing is one of the areas which are concerns for Namibia. So that could be something.
Could be other areas of cooperation. So let's see how it pans out. The Prime Minister is in delegation level talks with the President, Dr. Netembo Nandi and Datwa right now. So we will see on what the two sides are able to agree on once the documents are signed. I'd like to thank both my guests, Ambassador Singhal and also Madam Ruchita Berry, for being on the show and lending us your insights. That's it from us for the moment. Mark, thanks for watching.
Thank you.